Hello, and welcome back to another history. To boring history for sleep, a place where the past is not a drama to be witnessed, but a landscape to be gently wandered. A quiet story to be listened to as you slowly let go of the day. Tonight, we are going to travel back, far back, to a time and a place that feels almost like a dream. We are going to a rural manor in 12th century England, a world of damp earth and soft mist and the slow, unchanging rhythm of the seasons. This is not a story of knights and kings, but of the earth itself and the countless, nameless lives that were bound to it. We will feel the texture of coarse wool, taste the simplicity of a daily meal, and hear the quiet sounds of a life lived in the shadow of a lord's keep. So, find a comfortable position. Let your breathing become slow and even, and allow yourself to drift back through the centuries, to a simpler, harder, and quieter time. Just listen to the sound of the rain and the sound of my voice, and let yourself begin to relax and drift away. Imagine yourself not as a visitor, but as a part of this place. The first thing you would be aware of is not a sound, but a feeling. The deep, pervasive chill of a morning that is still more night than day. The air in your small hut is heavy and damp, and carries the faint, smoky scent of last night's banked fire. You are lying on a rough mattress, stuffed with straw, that rustles softly with every small movement you make. The blanket over you is coarse, woven from undyed wool, and it scratches lightly against your skin. There is no glass in the single small window, just a shuttered opening, and through its cracks, you can see no light. It is hours before dawn. This is when your day begins. There is no moment of decision, no luxury of waking slowly. Your body simply responds to a rhythm older than memory, the rhythm of the manor. You push the rough blanket aside, and the cool air meets your skin. Your feet find the hard-packed earthen floor, a floor that is always just a little bit damp, no matter the season. You would pull on a simple tunic of linen or rough hemp, and perhaps a pair of hose that are never quite clean. The fabric feels familiar, worn soft in some places, and stiff and gritty in others. You would take a piece of coarse, dark bread from the previous day's baking and chew it slowly. It is tough and requires effort, and tastes mostly of the grain and the ash from the oven. You wash it down with a small amount of weak ale, the same drink you will have all day, tasting faintly fermented and earthy. Then you step outside. The air is cool and moist on your face. The world is shades of gray and deep blue. Above you, the stars are still visible, sharp and cold. You can see your breath form, a faint mist in the air. You join a quiet stream of other figures, moving silently from their huts, all heading toward the same place, the fields. Your work is dictated by the season. Today, let us imagine it is late spring, the time for planting. You would walk to the strip of land you are allowed to tend for yourself, but your first and best hours of light belong to the Lord. You would take a heavy wooden plow and guide it through the cold soil. The work is slow and methodical. Your hands would grow sore from the friction of the wood. Your back would begin to ache with a dull, persistent thrum from the constant bending and lifting. There is no conversation, only the sound of your own breathing, the rhythmic turning of the earth, the distant call of a bird, the soft thud of the plowshare. Over and over and over, the sun would eventually rise. but it does not bring warmth, only light by which to see your work more clearly. The day stretches on, measured not by hours, but by the slow progress you make down the field. Your thoughts are not deep, they are simple, consumed by the task, by the ache in your muscles, by the growing emptiness in your stomach. When the light begins to soften once more, you would make your way back to your hut. Your meal for the evening is a pottage, a thick stew that has been simmering over the fire all day. It contains grains, and perhaps a few vegetables from your garden, a piece of bacon fat for flavor. It is warm and filling, but the taste is monotonous, the same day after day after day. You eat it from a wooden bowl with a wooden spoon, and the taste of the wood mingles with the taste of the food. As night falls completely, the darkness becomes almost total. The only light comes from your small fire, casting long dancing shadows on the walls of your wattle and daub hut. You might mend a tool, or simply sit listening to the sounds of the night, the crackle of the fire, the rustle of thatch, the distant hoot of an owl. And as you sit there, in the quiet, you would feel the weight of your obligations, the knowledge that a portion of everything you grow belongs to the Lord you have never truly seen, the knowledge that you are bound to this land, as surely as the trees are bound to it. Your life is one of routine and labor, and a quiet, enduring resilience, a life of small comforts and large burdens, all under the vast, indifferent sky of the Middle Ages. The rhythm of this life is slow and heavy and constant, a rhythm that could easily lull you into a state of quiet acceptance and sleep. As the darkness settles over your hut and over the entire manor, your mind might not turn to thoughts of the Lord in his distant castle, but to stories, to legends. In a world where life is hard and often short, people look for signs, for intercession, for hope. And so, they turn to the saints, not the famous saints of Rome or Jerusalem, but a local saint, a saint who belonged to this very landscape, whose story is woven into the local hills and streams. Tonight, let us meander through the story of one such figure, Saint Godric of Finchal. His story does not begin with miracles, but with ordinary life. Imagine a man, not so different from yourself, a man of the 11th century, born not to nobility, but to a simple Anglo-Saxon family. In his youth, he was a peddler, walking the same dusty tracks you might walk to the next village, carrying his goods on his back. His life one of modest travel and trade, a rhythm of walking and bargaining, and sleeping under hedges. But the rhythm of that life, for Godric, changed. It is said he felt a calling, a slow and persistent turning of his mind away from worldly goods and towards something quieter, something eternal. There was no single dramatic moment, but a gradual shifting, like the slow wearing down of a stone by a constant drip of water. He began to pilgrim, to wander with purpose, to holy sites. He is said to have traveled to Jerusalem and to Compostela, walking, always walking. His feet would have been sore, his clothes worn thin by the wind and the rain. His days would have been a monotony of devotion and footsteps, one after the other, for miles and miles and years and years. Eventually, he sought not a destination, but a separation. He retreated to a place of isolation, to a dense forest by the river Wear, at a place called Finchal. His life there was one of profound and deliberate monotony. He built a simple hut of branches and turf, much like the one you might live in, but for a different purpose. His was not for family, but for solitude. His days were shaped by ritual and routine. He would rise for prayers in the deep of night. He would tend a small garden, just enough to feed himself. He would spend hours in quiet contemplation or copying manuscripts, his hand moving slowly and deliberately across the page. The stories say he lived there, in that same spot, for 60 years. Imagine the repetition, the countless sunrises, the changing of the seasons, seen from the same small clearing, year after year after year. The legends that grew around him were not tales of great power, but of a quiet, stubborn asceticism. Stories of him standing in the icy river until his prayers were finished, of his gentle kinship with the animals of the forest, a deer that might visit him, or a bird that would alight on his shoulder. The miracles attributed to him were often small and personal, a vision that brought comfort to a troubled soul, a prediction of a local event that came to pass. The spread of his legend was as slow as his life had been. It moved not with the speed of a galloping horse, but at the walking pace of a pilgrim, or the whispered confidence of one neighbor to another. A traveler might stop at his hermitage, receive a blessing, and carry the story of the holy man of Finchel to the next village. Over decades, the stories grew and softened, and became part of the fabric of the land itself. He did not seek fame, he sought silence. And in that silence, his legend was born. A legend not of drama, but of devotion. A story of a life reduced to its simplest, most repetitive elements. A life that found meaning not in action, but in stillness. The slow, patient work of tending one's own soul, day after quiet day. And so, the memory of St. Godric, like the mist from the river he loved, settled over the north of England, a gentle presence, a story to be told on long winter nights, a reminder of the quiet power of a life lived apart from the world's noise. As the story of a saint provides a form of holy comfort, the world of the medieval peasant was also filled with older, quieter, and more hidden presences. The boundaries between the seen and the unseen were thin, like a veil of morning mist over the fields. Life was so uncertain, so tied to the whims of weather and sickness, that people looked for patterns, for protections, in the world around them. This was not a world of dramatic witchcraft, but of small, everyday superstitions. A world of quiet mysteries, practiced without fanfare, passed down in whispers from grandmother to granddaughter, from father to son. Tonight, we explore these gentle mysteries, the rituals that marked the boundaries of a life. The most important boundary was that of the home, and so, the threshold of your hut, the space beneath the door, was a sacred space. It was a line between the safety of the hearth and the unknown of the outside world. To protect it, someone, perhaps an ancestor long forgotten, might have buried a small object beneath it, a witch bottle. This was not a bottle of curses, but a bottle of quiet defense. It might be a small, simple vessel filled with rusty nails and bent pins, and perhaps a few clippings of hair or fingernails, all soaked in urine. It was not meant to harm, but to confuse, to entangle any ill will that might try to cross into the home. The thought was that a harmful spirit would be fascinated by the pins and the nails and become trapped, tangled in the personal effects, and would spend its time puzzling over them. Instead of entering the home, a simple quiet form of protection, hidden in the earth, beyond the home. The entire landscape was alive with meaning. The hedgerows that separated the fields were not just lines of brush and wood. They were the borders of the known world. Beyond them lay the wildwood, a place of deep shadow and mystery. It was believed that spirits, both good and ill, resided in these liminal spaces. And in some villages, there was a story, a whispered name for a particular protective spirit. They called it the Grim. This was not a ghost or a demon, but something else, a quiet guardian. Some said it took the form of a large, shaggy black dog that would be seen out of the corner of the eye, padding silently along a hedgerow at dusk, or drinking from the village pond. It was considered a lucky omen to see it, a sign that the village was under its watch. Others believed the Grim was older, that it was the spirit of the first animal buried when the village was founded, an ancient, slumbering consciousness tied to the land itself. It resided in a specific old place, perhaps the ancient gnarled oak tree in the center of the common field, its roots reaching deep into the history of the place. Or maybe it lived in the depths of the village pond, a still, silent presence resting in the cool, dark mud at the bottom. There were no grand rituals to summon the Grim, no prayers written in books. The respect shown was quieter. A farmer might leave a small piece of bread at the base of the old oak after a good harvest. A mother might tell her children not to throw stones into the pond, for fear of disturbing what rested there. It was a relationship built on quiet acknowledgement and a gentle, superstitious respect for the unknown forces that shared the land. These beliefs, these small mysteries, were a way of making sense of the world, a way of imposing a little order, a little safety on a life that was often unpredictable and harsh. They were the stories told not in church, but by the fireside. Stories that connected the people to the land, not through deeds of ownership, but through layers of story and memory and quiet, enduring folklore. A folklore that asked for no grand answers, but simply offered a sense of place and a gentle, watchful presence in the dark. Our journey has kept us on the damp earth, among the huts and the fields, and in the quiet spaces of local legend. But the rhythm of your life, the very reason you labor on the Lord's domain, is dictated from another place, a place that, to you, is little more than a silhouette on the horizon. The manor house, the keep. Let us now gently drift away from the village and towards that stone structure. But we will not find tales of feasting and romance within these walls. We will find a different kind of monotony, the monotony of administration. The lord of the manor is not a character from a song. He is, first and foremost, a manager of land. His world is one of parchment and tally sticks, of ink and wax seals. His great hall is not only a place for meals, but a place for court. On certain days, he would sit in a large chair, and you, along with your neighbors, would stand before him. But the cases are not dramatic. They are the small, tedious disputes of everyday life. Our argument over the precise boundary between two strips of land in the common field. A complaint about a pig that wandered into a neighbor's garden and ate the vegetables. A tenant who is behind on his payment of chickens for the year. The Lord listens, his steward whispering in his ear, and he renders a judgment. The proceedings are slow and formal, and to you, utterly bewildering. Later, the Lord might retire to his solar, a smaller room perhaps, but still drafty. The stone walls are thick, and they hold the chill of autumn. Even in the height of summer, a fire burns in the hearth, but its heat struggles to reach the corners of the room. Here he meets with his steward again. The steward carries a large ledger, its pages filled with careful script. Together, they audit the accounts of the manor. They review the number of bushels of wheat harvested from the Lord's own fields, the number of eggs collected, the cheeses, the gallons of ale brewed. They count the pennies paid in rent, and the value of the labor owed the boom work that you and the others will perform during the harvest. It is a dry, meticulous process, a world of numbers and obligations. This is the true source of his power, not the sword on the wall, but the ledger on the table. And this Lord, who seems so powerful to you, is himself bound. He is a tenant too, a vassal. He holds this land from a greater lord, perhaps a baron or an earl, or even the king himself. He owes them military service, a number of knights and men for 40 days a year. He owes them payments on the marriage of his daughter or the knighting of his son. His web of obligations is even more complex than your own. His luxury is real, but it is relative. He eats wheaten bread, where you eat rye or barley. He drinks wine, imported from France in wooden barrels, where you drink ale. His bed has a mattress stuffed with feathers, and curtains to keep out the drafts. But the drafts still come. The stone is still cold. His life, for all its comfort, is still confined by the same slow-passing seasons, the same worries over harvests, the same intricate and boring web of feudal duties that governs everyone from the highest to the lowest. He looks out from his window, down towards the village. He sees the huts, the smoke from your fires, the strips in the field. He does not see individuals. He sees assets. He sees the workings of the estate. And you, down in the village, look up at the stone keep and see a distant, powerful, and silent master. Two worlds, separated by a short walk, yet living in realities so different, yet connected by the unbreakable and monotonous bonds of land and law. And in this way, the entire manor, from the highest room to the lowest hut, was connected in a single, slow and endless rhythm. You are here in your own time, in your own space, a space of warmth and safety and comfort. The obligations of the manor are centuries gone. The fear of a poor harvest is a distant echo. The only rhythm that matters now is the rhythm of your own breathing, in and out, slow and steady. The past is a quiet story, told and finished. It has no claim on you tonight. Any aches or worries or burdens you carry from your day can be let go, as easily as letting go of that heavy wooden plow at the end of a long day. They can settle into the earth and be gone. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through the quiet history of a medieval manor. Let the feeling of that deep, enduring stillness remain with you. Let your mind be as quiet as the village pond under a moonless sky. Let your body be as heavy and relaxed as a sack of grain after the harvest is done. Just breathe in and breathe out, and as you breathe, allow yourself to drift deeper and deeper into a calm and restful sleep.